Hello, my name is Alan Paris. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I'm a recovering nicotine abuser. I also struggle with anger, fear, overeating, and self-worth. I know some of you enjoy a cigar or chew on a special occasion, and I don't want to seem like I'm making a judgment on you. This is about me and about my struggle. March 29th, 2009 is my surrender date. That was the date that I finally admitted that I was powerless to overcome my abuse of nicotine in the form of smokeless tobacco. I discovered smokeless tobacco at about the age of 9. A friend of mine gave me a pinch of Copenhagen. I promptly got sick and spit it out, but I didn't let that stop me. Sometime later again, I tried it again. I was riding a horse and I promptly fell off, got dizzy and fell off. But I didn't let that stop me. When I was 13 years old, my cousin introduced me to beech nut chewing tobacco, and I liked it. But it made me spit too much. Later on, he introduced me to skull snuff, and I liked that. It's wintergreen flavor, and I really did like it. I was about 18 years old when I started using Copenhagen snuff. The wintergreen flavor had started giving me heartburns, and so I switched. I continued to use one version or another of smokeless tobacco until I was 47 years old. Many people had tried to get me to stop and showed me the things that I was doing to my body. A health teacher showed me the before and after pictures of what happens when you have mouth cancer. A friend showed me where they had taken part of his skin off his backside and grafted it to his face, where they had removed the cancerous tissue from his face and cheek. He later died from throat cancer. My dental assistant wife tried to show me all the bad things that I was doing to my body, but I didn't listen. For some reason, fear was never really a motivator or something to drive my resolve to quit. I did feel a sense of guilt. The Bible says that my body is a temple, so I was causing damage to the temple. And it was something that over time I began to feel like was something that I was holding between myself and God, and it was preventing God from working in my life in a way that I thought was good. I'd asked God on numerous occasions to help me put it down, and He did a couple of times. I even went 3 months once without using any, but the pressures of work and life and just everything drove me back to it. I didn't seem to have the right motivation or any sort of resolve to quit. I'd pretty much given up and just accepted that this was something that I would have to live with for the rest of my life. I felt totally powerless until one day. September 27, 2008 was when my motivation and resolve showed up in the form of a little boy. His name is AJ. He's my youngest daughter's firstborn. He's my first grandson. He showed up almost a year to the day after my dad passed away. My dad's passing had driven the whole family into this deep, dark spot. And I firmly believe God allowed AJ to show up so that we would stop mourning, that we had this new little life that we had to deal with, and that we needed to start living again. After AJ got here, it started me thinking about my life and what kind of influence I would be on him and his siblings as they come along. Would I be a positive or negative influence on my grandchildren? Would I support my children as they tried to parent by my positive actions or not? I didn't want to be the kind of role model who didn't practice what he had preached. Someone has said that grandchildren are your second chance to fix the things that you messed up with your own children. And I felt like I needed to get this right. So in AJ, I felt like I'd found my motivation. I asked God for His divine intervention one afternoon, and He took my hand and He helped me lay down my addiction. It wasn't until I was no longer under the influence of nicotine that I was able to look back at my life and go and ask myself why I had never been able to quit all those times before. And the only thing I really came up with was I was afraid. I was afraid of who I would be. I really couldn't understand. And I'd grown up, I'd gone through puberty and adolescence under the influence of nicotine. And I really didn't know who Alan was without it in my life. Would I still be the person that my wife loved? Would I be able to control my anger? Nicotine had become and was my only coping mechanism. When I got nervous, I reached for the can. When I was afraid, I reached for the can. When I was pretty much whatever, I reached for my can. When I woke up out of bed in the morning, I reached for the can. And unless I was eating something, and sometimes not, I pretty much had a dip in my mouth 24/7. I would fall asleep within my mouth. I didn't think I could function without it. When I finally surrendered, God showed me that Alan would be okay without nicotine in his life. God started showing me that Alan without nicotine was okay, and that He would help me deal with my fears, angers, and whatever. But I had to let Him take over. One of the places where God has always been there in my life is with my wife, Roxanne. I firmly believe that God had a whole lot to do with us being us. As I look back, I see His hands in the circumstances of how we met, and it's a pretty amazing story. I'll tell you about it sometime. But when my wife agreed to marry me, she had to make a decision of whether she could accept my bad habit or my addiction, and I would be something less than what her ideal mate would have been. But she did accept me as a person who was less than her ideal image of a husband, and she started praying for me. She accepted me and loved me, and she never nagged. I know I've disappointed her several times, but her love is ferocious. In August, we will celebrate our 39th year, our 39th wedding anniversary. And I thank God for her every day. Now let me finish telling you about AJ. He's very athletic. He's the quarterback on his football team. He's a point guard on his basketball team. He's a pitcher on his baseball team. He's very smart. He likes to figure out how stuff works. He's a car guy. If you can't tell, I'm a very proud papa. But he also needs a grandfather who will be an aid and not a hindrance to his mom and dad as they try to raise him and his sibling the best they can. I hope and pray that I can. Thanks for letting me share one of my struggles with you.